Here we are, Ashley.
My own purpose, I should say, is really clear. I know that I want to help women, and I want to help women with the physical aspect of being able to go out and purchase hair if they want to wear alternative hair, and then I want to help them in terms of their overall confidence and comfort with who they are, with or without hair.
Here we are again with our Dimples show, and we have Ashley. I'm very excited to have you here. Welcome, Ashley. How are you feeling today?
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm a little nervous, but I'm happy to be here.
Ashley and I don't even know each other that well. We've done a couple of calls, but I definitely feel very comfortable talking to you, Ashley, and I think we have a lot of core values in common. First of all, tell us you a little bit about yourself. I know you do some teaching and where you live and a snippet of your journey.
Sure. The feeling, by the way, is mutual. I feel the same way about you. And I think that that is just such a great thing that you're doing here. Yeah, I'm a high school teacher in Ontario, Canada. I teach English literature and I also have hair loss. So I've sort of tried to overcome my fear of public speaking, and I started a social media page that talks about hair loss and alternative hair options for women. And it's been a really incredible journey so far.
You just reminded me of something that I'm gonna ask you later, but if you can think of it now, amazing. Do you happen to have a favorite quote by any chance?
So there are so many, but one that comes to mind is from Alexander Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo. And it says it's something to the effect of, life throws hardships your ways, but what really shows you the quality of a person, what makes you a man, is what you do when the storm comes, and how you weather those storms is, I think, a pretty powerful quote. It's not exact, but that's the message.
I just got simultaneously a cold shiver down my body, and like the beginning of tears behind my eyes when you said that quote. Uh, that is super powerful. If any of you know about the Count of Monte Cristo, it's old English literature. It's actually a giant book. It's like this thick. If you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, there's a time when Andy, he's in the library, and one of the prison mates pulls out the book and he makes a joke. He's like, "Look at this. This was written by Alexander Dumbass." Remember that? And
I
he's
do.
like, "No, it's Dumas, and it's the Count of Monte Cristo about a prison break. You should read it." And then the guy read it. It's an amazing book, and I read it when I was on my travels, running away, backpacking 20 years ago. So I love that quote. So about the storm. So tell me a little bit about your story, how you've gone from English teacher, and you're still an English teacher, inspiring kids with these amazing quotes. Gosh, I'm so glad I asked you that. What a great quote. And where has that led you else in your life, that quote? Where are you on your quest?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Um, I think I'm not, it's really hard to connect. So, oh my gosh, now I'm going to be quoting everything. But Steve Jobs once said that it's really hard to connect the dots forward, right? You can only do it when you're looking back. It's really hard to know exactly where on the journey I am, but I do know that I'm in a place of a peace with hair loss that I didn't imagine I would ever find. And that is really exciting because it's something that I so wish for so many other women. Um, and that is from the social media page. That's from finding alternative hair myself. That's from putting myself in uncomfortable situations and so I don't know exactly where I am, and I'm not exactly sure where it's all going to end up, but I know that I'm really happy where things are right now and with the connections that I'm making every day with other women who are in either the same place in their journey or further ahead of me and they're modeling the path, or who are just starting off.
We're definitely going to come back to the journey of other women and your connection with that, because that's a real powerful movement we're seeing. The we do this together. The power of that. You did say something about putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Can you tell me a bit more about
Yeah, I mean,
that?
oh my gosh, I told you the motif now is going to be quotes. J.K. Rowling once said that in her Harvard University address, you don't want to live your life so cautiously that you might as well not be living, right? That you sometimes have to take risks. You have to do things that make you uncomfortable in order to make this whole thing worthwhile and memorable. And I am someone who just loves, as so many people do, comfort. I resist change. I'm very happy at home. I live in the countryside, very much secluded in a lot of ways. And then I also know that, as a mother and as a teacher, I have to do things sometimes that make me uncomfortable in order to encourage other people to do the same. And I realize when I do look back on my life so far that, as I'm sure is the case for everybody, the things that I'm proudest of, or the things that changed me the most, or challenged me the most, or that were some of my happiest times, came as a result of being uncomfortable and taking those risks, right? Whether it's a relationship or a job or starting a social media page or whatever it is, you have to be a little comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so, yeah, that's my my experience.
Are there any of those uncomfortable situations that you brushed upon that you could tell us about in a little bit more detail?
Since we are talking a lot about hair loss today, I'll give sort of a fairly recent one that uh, really has changed my life in remarkable ways. And that is first wearing my first ever hair topper. So it was COVID 2020. We were in lockdown and I was teaching online. So everybody had pivoted in Canada. We were in lockdown for a very, very long time, specifically in the part of Canada where I live. And so we had our children at home doing kindergarten online, and we were teaching. My husband's also a teacher in the classroom next door to mine. So we were both trying to manage that. And I thought, this is the time, right? If I'm ever going to really jump into committing to trying alternative hair and really embracing it, what better time than whenever we do go back to in-person learning to go back then. No one will even remember what I looked like after 6 months or 8 months out of the classroom. And so I can remember the very first day that I put on a topper and taught my class. And that was terrifying, right? I almost didn't do it. I thought, gosh, these are grade 12 students. They might eat me alive, right? And they said nothing. I don't even know if they noticed. Fortunately, it's sort of grainy in the Zoom call that we had, and everyone's internet quality was terrible. But I did it. And it was that first time doing it near the end of the semester. There were only a few days left with them, that I thought, okay, I think I can continue to do this in small steps and then have sort of a bigger reveal when we go back to school. So that first time doing it, it's memorable. And then looking back, I think, gosh, what was I so worried about, right? I wear alternative hair all the time now, or not. I'm even more comfortable in my bio hair than I ever was before, because it's just an acceptance now. And wearing alternative hair has helped with that acceptance. So a lot of good has come out of that first initial risk, which I felt like was a big one at the time.
So, more comfort has come with your bio hair as a result of wearing alternative hair.
Ironic.
Tell me, tell me how. So wearing, so it's like, yeah, wearing a topper. That's what you wear, right? Toppers?
Well, it started with toppers and now I'm branching into wigs as well. Yeah, because the comfort.
Really? Oh,
Hmm.
fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. We can talk more about that later. That's great. First of all, are you a daily wearer, or were you a daily wearer from that date, or before then on Zoom? What was your start date for wearing hair?
Good question. So that would have been, it's funny because I don't remember the even the month that I chose to start wearing it. I think it was near the end of our semester, but things had been juggled around so much in terms of the school structure and the calendar structure that I don't even really remember. Spring 2020. Um,
Okay.
Once I started wearing it to school, though, which was the next September, I committed to wearing it every day because I didn't want anyone to notice. And I thought if I wore the same hair piece every single day, I actually had two pieces. One was a curly piece of the same color, and one was a straight piece because I actually have curly bio hair. And I figured if I just alternated between those, that same piece really, nobody would notice. That was the hope. So from then on, every day for work. And I've maintained that since 2020. I do change it up a little, but it's subtle enough that students, they question whether I've dyed my hair or gotten a haircut. And then now when I'm out and about, it could be anything. I could be wearing my everyday topper. I could be wearing a completely different hair color, different wig, or sometimes now we live just down the road from a water park and we go with our kids and I just wear a wide headband with absolutely nothing. I used to always wear a cap, try to conceal the thinning hair, and now I just go as I am and try to just have fun with my children. So yeah.
I'm not sure how old your kids are, but did you have to at some point have a conversation like this is a topper, this is a wig? How did that happen?
That's such a good question, and one that I have talked about a lot with other women in the space. Um, my children do not like alternative hair. They're really tough critics of it, and they, I think, want mom to be mom, but they
Mm.
also support my decision, and they're really fun about giving advice. That when they accept that I will be wearing it, if I ask, "What do you think of this?" or "What do you think of that?" they're very forthcoming with their opinions. But I love it. I want them to see a mom who is happy and confident, but who also can, as I said, take it off and go to the park and go to the water park and just be. I have to be careful with daughters. I also have a stepdaughter who is just starting college, and you have to be aware of what they're seeing and how they're interpreting it too, and how do they internalize that when they look in the mirror. So
How old are your kids?
so we have one who's just entering college. She's 18. And then we also have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah, so they can ask questions. 7 and 10. Oh wow.
Yeah.
They're definitely conscious, I'm sure outspoken. So here's my other thing, a question. Husband, how did it go with husband or partner,
Yeah.
uh, your significant other, the correct terminology insert here. Okay.
Yeah. I'm really lucky. My husband is so supportive. And
Uh-huh.
whenever I encounter, and it happens more often than I wish I had to admit, encounter women who send me messages whose husbands aren't supportive. If I tell him about it, he says, let me talk to him. Because he
Ah,
knows what the difference is. I mean, to see your partner struggle and then know that this could be the thing that changes their livelihood. I mean, why wouldn't you want to support that? So I'm very fortunate. He is usually the person when I'm on the fence about ordering a piece or, uh, living my best frugal life. He's the one who's giving me the nudge most of the time, and comes up with all the reasons why I should have it. So I'm very very fortunate.
did you tell him before you made your first purchase or after?
Absolutely. So we are, as I said, we work together. So we drive to school together. We drive home from school together. We're pretty much together all of the time. We run the side business together. Uh, and he hasn't gotten totally sick of me yet. So that's great. But I so definitely had to talk about it with him first. I couldn't imagine making such a big decision without talking to him. But I did have a little stint with some synthetic wigs that weren't quite right for me a couple of years before buying
Hmm.
the first hair topper that I decided to wear every day. And so he saw the journey through increased hair thinning after childbirth, after um, both of the babies being born, and knew that if this could be the thing that would give me comfort when I'm out and about and shorten my time of getting ready in the morning. What a blessing that is.
Yeah, I've that's something new I've learned actually, that it shortens getting ready time. Tell us about that.
Well, for one, I mean, the hair is ready to go, and that is lovely. You can style it the night before. Once it's styled, I mean, this piece is a dimple synthetic. It doesn't require any work really. If it's a human hair piece, you can style it and it'll last for days, if not weeks. So that's lovely. It actually shortens the physical getting ready time. But in addition to that, there's the emotional time spent getting ready. I spent a lot of years trying to conceal thinning or sort of bald spots with using hair fibers and just spending hours in the mirror trying to hide every little bit with hairspray. It's exhausting. And by the time I would get into the car in the morning after the morning rush with the children and putting my makeup on and doing my hair, sometimes I was just spent and I just felt terrible. That's not a good way to start the day. So it's a lot easier when you know you can just grab Old Faithful and plop her on your head.
Is that the name of your topper, Old Faithful?
It tends to be, like I said, summertime now, it's anything goes. It changes all the time. But during the school year, I do have a tendency to pick, even though I have so many that are similar and I could wear, I tend to stick with the same one because I'm a little lazy when it comes to getting ready. I just want to be able to grab it and run out, put it on the car if I have to.
As an English teacher, you were telling me before, your kids in your class come up with the title later. Why do you think the title should come later?
Well, I don't know if it was a teacher who first told me that piece of advice or if I came up with it on my own. So I feel like I might be not giving credit where credit is due, but I teach essay writing all the time, every semester. And whether it's a story or whether it's an essay or whether it's a speech, a presentation, it's important to know what you're going to talk about. You have to have your thesis. You have to have your direction, what you're ultimately going to do, how you're going to serve, whatever it is. But until you really get through that curriculum or you get through that essay, how can you name it, right? I feel like naming something is so definitive. And until you see it come together, I feel like you have that perspective to be able to more appropriately name it. I actually tell my students not just to wait on naming the paper, but wait on writing the whole introduction. They don't have to. If they want to go for it, they can go for it right off the bat. But I have found personally that some of the best pieces of writing in terms of my introductions and conclusions come when I finish the whole piece and then I write those last two bits.
That's really, really cool because as I was saying earlier, this is our seventh or eighth interview, and we still don't have a title. We haven't released them yet. Okay, so if you're hearing this, there will be a title when you watch this. But yeah, absolutely, we started the journey and even the blurb about what this is. We had our purpose to ease a difficult journey of loss. Absolutely, that we live with. That's our core purpose in our business and all our affairs. So that was our guiding force. But that intro and that the titles, that's so true. So regarding your journey, do you have a thesis for your journey? If you could say a thesis, what would it be?
Uh, that's such a good question. I think that I would have a different answer for every part of my life, probably, with regards to the hair loss journey, which is now sort of shifted from being focused on helping myself and finding answers and resources for myself into one of service for others. I think my own purpose, I should say, is really clear. I know that I want to help women and I want to help women with the physical aspect of being able to go out and purchase hair if they want to wear alternative hair. And then I want to help them in terms of their overall confidence and comfort with who they are with or without hair. And then, I have different purposes within my own family and within my own profession as a teacher. So I don't know if I have one giant one, except that this is going to sound really cheesy, but my husband and I are really big on integrity. And I have a quote, of course, somewhere on the board about integrity, but I think doing everything to the best of your ability with as much transparency and authenticity as you can is always a really good guide.
Awesome. Do you have a title for any of these journeys? Is there a title yet?
Taylor Swift is very current right now. So I feel like, yeah, we could have like the eras. I don't know. I can't name it until I'm finished.
Okay. And you said when you're finished, so what's the end point? Is there an end point? What is the end point?
The end point is I don't see it yet. I just know that their opportunities keep presenting themselves in unexpected ways, and I just go with the flow and see where it takes me.
Awesome. So you did mention Taylor Swift. I'm not a fan, but my wife certainly is. Do you like Taylor Swift?
Uh, I I actually saw Taylor Swift before Taylor Swift was big. I was on leaning on the stage. That's how close.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. So that's how.
yeah. My students don't believe me when I tell them the story, and I have photograph. I have a photograph somewhere on an old camera. You know those big digital cameras. So I gotta go find it. Yeah, she was opening for Brad
Yes.
Paisley in Ottawa, Canada, and I was just a new teacher, and I do like Taylor Swift, but when I that was a long time ago. So my old self loved Taylor Swift, and I think though I don't really listen to her music much, my students talk about her. I gave some of her recent stuff a listen. I think that at the end of the day, I have a lot of respect for her. I was reading an article yesterday about how she was doing so much good for so many people, donations of hundreds of thousands of dollars to food banks in every city, and taking care of her team, giving them enough money for down payments on houses, things like that. So I have to say I have a newfound respect for her, and I did put my name on the pre-registration with Ticketmaster just a couple of days ago for when she comes to Canada in 2024, so that if we do get tickets, I'll take my daughter, because I think now that I've read those stories, I feel like that's a good role model. She's very much a person who I think promotes acceptance and love, which is what we all need.
Acceptance and love. You brought up acceptance before when you talked about earlier on when you talked about the journey. Tell me about acceptance and love and tell me some examples of in your journey of hair loss or any kind of loss, any growth parts in your life.
I'm hesitating because I don't know if I want to go where I'm thinking about going. My my mother is very ill right now, actually, with terminal brain cancer, and that's an interesting thing to be happening. We're on opposite sides of the country. She lives in British Columbia, so much closer to you than I am, and there's acceptance that has to come out of that. Getting a diagnosis. She's very young. She's 59 and very fit, very active. Tries to eat organic. Just does everything sort of the right way. And despite that, there's this diagnosis of glioblastoma, which is very random and sporadic. They're not really sure what causes it, but they do know that it's terminal, and in her case, it's inoperable. So there's acceptance that has to come with a diagnosis like that. It's not a question of whether it will be fought. It's just a question of how much time you have. And interestingly, she, in starting her treatments of chemotherapy and radiation to try to prolong her life, had to prepare for hair loss. And so I flew out there in June, and it was really nice to be able to share with her and help her in understanding alternative hair. That was a really nice experience to be able to sort of be there for her in that way. She's very independent, and in the end wanted to sort of do the shopping and make the decisions on her own. But to be able to answer questions and be there as a support is really nice. And so all of that about acceptance plays into this, whether it's something that you're going to live with for the rest of your life, like hair loss, or whether it is a diagnosis that is terminal. We often are faced with adversities that we don't anticipate, and we have to find ways to navigate through them. And watching her accept the inevitable, but continue to push forward to live the best life that she can in what time she has left, and to extend that time, is so inspiring. And, there's so much learning that can happen from just watching other people and listening to other people and seeing how they navigate their journeys. And that's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about acceptance, is this big event that we've all had to kind of come to terms with.
So first of all, very sorry to hear about your mother and what she's going through. And gosh, she's very young and very brave, and it's really powerful that she is in acceptance, because many people in the world, wow, gosh, I'm really generalizing here, but um, I'll I'll just say about myself. For me to get into acceptance, I usually go through a stage of denial, uh, fighting it, and that becomes and turns into real suffering. And maybe in whatever it is, there's a turning point where I do get to acceptance, but maybe there's times where, I'm not I'm not able to get there. But she's in acceptance. And did you see that? Was there a turning point? Was she in suffering and fighting it at the beginning? And then was there a turning point, or was it, how did it, what was the flow like from diagnosis to acceptance?
It's hard to, I mean, I'm watching it from afar, which makes it very different because I've only been out there once, and they, they're very, my parents, they've been together since my mom was 16. They've been together forever. So they are doing things as they always have together. And I respect that. And I want them to have the space and time together that they want. So it's hard to say because what somebody says versus how they're feeling are not always the same thing. But she is the toughest cookie, just like her mother, my grandmother, Scottish grandmother, who is just the toughest woman. And my mom is very much the same way. She never complains. She just sort of picks up and carries on. Some people would say that that's not a good thing, that maybe we're not fully feeling the feelings or we're not acknowledging. But from the get-go, she was the one who was trying to make everybody else feel good. So if you would check in, she'd crack jokes or she'd make light of situations. And um, despite that, I know that there's acceptance because I get other messages in between that show that she's very much aware of her situation, but has just been so determined to say, well, it doesn't matter, right? It is what it is, and we're just going to push forward and try to extend the time and fight as hard as we can. So, yeah, I don't know if there ever was a turning point for her. Not only she can answer that, and I feel I'm not even sure that it's for me to tell her story, because our stories are so personal to us. But certainly from afar, watching her is a remarkable thing that she just doesn't even want to know timelines and things like that. She just wants to carry forward.
So your story started in 2020, or earlier, and you said you tried a couple synthetic wigs on before, and you said that you've got two kids, 7 and 9, and after each kid you had some hair loss, which I've heard many times before. And the hair loss you had did you have any hair loss before the kids?
It's interesting because in knowing that I was going to be talking with you today, I just had some thinking about when did all this really start. And so for me, 2020 is such an important time because that was the time that I really embraced alternative hair. And with that came all of my acceptance, real acceptance, and stopped looking for other solutions. But if I look back at photographs, thin hair has always been something that I've struggled with. Probably as far back as I can remember, I've never had, unless I pull out pictures of me when I was 3, I have curly hair. So it's always looked really dense, but it's always been thin. It runs in the family. My grandmother had a wig in her 50s that she never wore. It didn't look like some of the wigs that we have today. And it was very uncomfortable for her. So there's that on my maternal side. My mom has thin hair as well. I think I have the most advanced thinning of anyone in my family, but yeah, it's always been there, and it's just gotten progressively thinner over time, more diffused. So there wasn't really a moment, but there were a series of moments where I would look at photographs and go, oh my gosh, before having children, even in my early 20s, hanging out with my girlfriends. And we'd get a group shot and I'd go, oh, or the sunburns on my scalp that nobody else was getting to the severity that I was. And it was only sort of gradually that I realized, oh, there's something here that's not quite the same as everybody else. And yeah, but it did progress after children. Um, I'm certain that that's probably part of it, just because it seemed to be more progressive at that time. But it's just been so gradual that you almost wouldn't notice. It's like a yeah.
So I heard you say that there might be some hereditary in your mother and your grandmother, and then after kids, you had some hair loss as well. Were there any things that you tried before trying alternative hair? I hear lots of things, all kinds of mystical things to scientific things, and all to prayer, even, like all kinds of things to bring it back, to make me look. I want to look like I used to. I want to look with more like I had thicker hair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving quotes of consumers I've spoken to before, which I'm so grateful I was able to do that. And any other consumer that wants to speak, please reach out. Really, really, I learn a lot, so I can help more people. So, what are the things? Any tricks or
It's
solutions?
really funny that you say that about, because I've met so many women who say, I just want my hair to look the way it used to. But my hair has never looked as good as it
Hmm.
does with alternative hair. So for me, it's such a no-brainer, right? I'll never go back. Even if I could find some magical potion to give me some growth, I can't ever imagine just abandoning alternative hair. It's just too easy and too good. Um, but yeah, I don't have an official diagnosis because I did go to a dermatologist and she was awful. The experience was awful. I left in tears. Um, at that time, it was post baby number two. I was filling my part line with just eyeshadow. I didn't even know that root powder was a thing. I didn't know that hair fibers were a thing quite yet. And so I was filling in that part every day with eyeshadow, as if that makes a difference. If you look at any other angle, you'd be able to see the thinning. And that morning before going to the dermatologist, I washed it completely fresh, went to meet her, and there was some residue from the powder. And she looked at me with disgust and said, "What is that?" And I told her, "Well, I'm trying to conceal the thinning." She thought it was a terrible idea, that it would clog my pores further. Offered no blood work, no type of diagnosis, no future meeting. She just looked at me and said, "Well, yeah, yours is the worst case of thinning I've ever seen for someone your age. There's great prosthetics out there now," and then sort of shoved me out on my way. And it did give me a prescription without any blood work, any look into my medical history for something. And I can't recall what it was. I don't know the name of the drug or anything like that. All I know is that I got home that day. I was in tears. She was really cold, no empathy. And as I took it, it doesn't mean that she didn't have empathy. I just didn't feel it. And I came home and I looked up the prescription with my husband, and it had 1,000,001 side effects that I just wasn't willing to risk. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. If I can't get a diagnosis and I can't get, I waited months to meet this person. If I can't get blood work, the only solution is to potentially take this drug that may or may not work and may also give me liver failure, then I guess that's the end of it. We're going to have to find something else that's a different type of solution. And that's probably around the time that the alternative hair space became an interesting one for me.
That is a lot that you went through. And what she said to you hurts me because I imagine myself hearing those words under any circumstance. Um, I'd feel like I'm just not good enough, or I'm doomed. And when I heard you say that what the doctor said, yours is the worst case
Hmm.
of hair loss. Is that what she
My
said?
age.
Yours is the worst case I have ever seen, with a cold, steely voice of a doctor that just probably wants to get on to the next patient. And you waited months to see this person. And I don't know what was going through your mind for the months before seeing that person. Maybe, as doctors, they're going to solve everything as a doctor. Maybe it was that, or I don't know what you were thinking. But how did you how do you feel right
Well,
now when I say that?
it's interesting because uh, I hadn't really looked back on it recently, and you've hit it. That's exactly how I felt. You go to this doctor in anticipation, and I guess I thought that there would be a solution, that she was going to magically fix this. I don't know why I would be so naive, but I thought that if anyone could point me in the right direction, could find out if there's something that we can take, some sort of supplement, that she would be able to do that. And I left feeling completely deflated. Right? I just thought, well, as you said, I'm doomed. I guess this is it. And then I had to go back and teach. So it was a rough day. But I'm glad that I had that experience, because it certainly has taught me something about empathy. And just because it has helped me to learn how to approach other people and hear their concerns, and to make sure that they are feeling validated. um, and then also was the first step in my acceptance, because at that moment I really did think that, well, there's nothing I can do on this side of things, in the scientific side of things, so I'm going to have to figure this out in another way to cope. So in a way, it was really a positive. She didn't lead me down a path of tests, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people really would like to have answers, right? They want to know, they want a diagnosis, but it wasn't an option for me in that moment, and there was some finality to that, which is okay. I'm not going to get that answer. I'm going to have to just be at peace with not having an answer. And sometimes life is that way. Sometimes things end and you don't have an answer as to why. You just have to pick up and carry on and figure out, what are you going to do next. So
You said you felt deflated when you left the doctor's office. Did you feel any other feelings you remember?
just incredibly sad. I think I cried in the car, and anger. If I look back, I can remember the
Hmm.
day. I can remember it was a sunny day. I think it was October, and just feeling so frustrated. She was rude in other ways. She sort of belittled my profession, and there were some other things. So I left there just feeling frustrated and angry that she, in her many many years of experience, she was on the verge of retirement, um, wasn't trying to do more. And I was very docile too. Me today probably would have left there in a different way. I don't think I would have been rude, but I think I would have been a little bit more frank about, and advocated more for what I wanted in the moment. At that time, my natural instincts to sort of recoil, which is probably something that a lot of women who are struggling with hair loss feel. Um, it was just the natural reaction, just to be quiet, leave, and then all the emotions came out after.
So the natural reaction was recoil, leave. Um, oh, it's okay, in the moment, and then afterwards the emotions came. And now you said, if the me of me today was there, I would have done something different or said something different. So if you were there right now, the Ashley you are today in that doctor's office, and you could really say what you wanted to say, what would you say?
If I wanted an answer or a diagnosis, I would have demanded one. Right? It's my it's my right to get the test done. And if not, I would have asked for another opinion, even if it took time to wait to get in to see another specialist. I don't think I would have just quit. Um, but by the same token, I no longer feel the need to have those answers. So if I was transporting this version of myself back, I would have pushed harder to have answers. But me today would also just not even go to that first meeting.
And is there anything you'd want to say to that doctor?
Sometimes I think that people are who they are, and we can only we can only hope that they change through modeling. And I know that sounds maybe a little cliche, but I don't think that there's any changing. I don't know what happened to her in her profession or the career. Maybe she just had a bad day. Maybe something was going on in her life. Um, we can't all be on all the time. And certainly I'm no saint. And, I work with students every day, and I know that there are days where I make mistakes. I believe in apology, though. If I would have, if it was not characteristic of her and she was having an off day, you know how to find your patients. You can call them. But no, I don't think it's worth the energy on someone like that. I don't believe that she would, she'd probably dismiss it, right?
So you talked about anger, deflation, sadness, and then now the ash, and then also recoiling, um, and then later feeling that. And but today, when we talk about that, it's unbelievable. Like you are past it. You're like, I don't want to give it any energy. There's no point. You're already moving ahead. So it's so cool that you didn't hold on to that, because that could have easily turned into a resentment, and then a resentment can turn into a grudge, and then a grudge can turn into, I don't know, maybe light depression, and just it's just not worth it. So it's so awesome that you have that forgiveness for this person, and who may have been having a bad day, or just maybe like that. Who knows? It's the way I heard you say it was as if you were saying it's none of my business anymore. Just let her be her. If she wants to do her thing, great. You're doing your thing, and the the gift from that uncomfortable, uncomfortable experience that you had was that maybe it helped you find your purpose today, which is helping other women, right? One of your purposes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know everybody's experience. And a lot of times when I am talking to women directly, I'm not getting that whole story. I'm just getting a snippet. It's just the chapter that they're in right now. And they're only telling me so much. But I know it comes with a lot of emotions, and it comes with a lot of turmoil. And yeah, if you can find silver lining and then help sort of the next person behind you, why wouldn't you? Right. So yeah, I am glad that I was able to move past it. As you said, no, there are a lot of women in this space who struggle and continue to struggle every day. And it honestly just breaks my heart. Sometimes I get emotional um, when I'm reading messages, getting emails, and you just want to be able to give them where you are now, but they have to get there on their own. They have to go through the emotions and go through the feelings and come out on the other side. So I do feel fortunate that I was able to do it in a I feel like a relatively quick way, and that I don't think I gave it as much worry or concern as maybe I could have. But I was also I was a new mom, and my kids were little, and I had other things that just needed me in that moment, and something that you talked about earlier as well. And that is a really good support system in my partner. So my husband was really great, and he is very much a someone who's we can't dwell on things. We have to feel it, and then we have to figure out what's the next step. How are we going to move forward? And he really lets things just roll off his back all the time. And he's good for me in that sense. When I start to overthink, he pushes me sort of in the right direction, and makes me sort of get realigned and sends me out on a run. Go for a run.
Ah, and you listen to him? Wow,
Yeah, he
wonderful,
knows me better than I
wonderful.
know myself, probably.
That's
So
awesome. So you said he helps you with your overthinking. Tell me
yeah.
about overthinking. What does it sound like? What does it look like? Is there a name of the voice? Is there a similar way the voice talks? Does the voice have a title, a thesis, a hypothesis, a conclusion?
I think I don't know. I think I'm just one of those. There are those people who just have a tendency to rabbit hole things a little bit, right? Whether it's in research or it's in your own thinking. I just have a tendency. I think, like probably many people, many women especially, to just overthink. we're having this conversation, and I'm sure I'm going to work very hard at just walking away and saying that was a great chat with, James. I had a lot of fun. But I know that if I allow myself to overthink how I responded to questions or what I communicated, how was my tone, that can be detrimental sometimes to people, right? It can just sort of spiral. I don't do it as much anymore, but I don't know if it has a name, but it's definitely just a tendency of mine in everything I do to overthink. And I think that that's the liberating part about helping other people on a more social platform, is that you really just have to go with it. You can't overthink. You can't over prepare. You can't, I mean, especially if you want to maintain the authenticity that you and I were talking about before, right? You just have to sometimes hit play or send that message and just be a little bit vulnerable. So I'm getting much better at not overthinking things, but it creeps in sometimes.
So with the overthinking rabbit holes, you said, is it an overthinking of past events or future events that haven't happened yet?
Ooh. At this point in my life, it's anticipation of things that just, yeah, future events. I don't spend, yeah, probably. I don't think that that was the case for a younger version of myself. I spent a lot of time looking back at situations or conversations, how I handled things, and wondering if I did it the right way. But no, now it's more just overthinking something like this, right? But I really, this before our chat, I actually just put it on the back burner, and my children became very ill in the last couple of days. So that took all our time and energy. And it was a good thing, because I think that, again, authenticity means just go with it. Just present yourself as you are and live the experience in the moment.
So there's a term for that, future tripping. And I remember, and for those that are listening, when I said future tripping, Ashley started biting her lip. Um, so, as I'm not pointing the finger at you, I love this topic because I go down rabbit holes. It's mostly future stuff. It's not as much of the past stuff, and it used to be a lot. Like I should have done this, or shoulda, woulda, coulda. I used to relive because I was a chronic repressor of feelings and emotions, and I used to relive unconscious, memories of conversations of exes or some certain people, and I would say what I really wanted to say in my head. I know it sounds crazy, isn't it? Psychotic, but this is what I would do a lot. I would, it was like I'd win the argument, in the present moment from something in the past, right? A lot of that's gone, right? But I definitely get the future tripping, and I you know, devour a bag of chips while I'm not realize I'm devouring chips while I'm future tripping about something. And my wife will be like, "Why are you eating those chips like a gargoyle over there in the corner?" I'll be like, "Oh my God," standing in the kitchen doing this. So I heard this guy on an airplane. I was watching like a TED talk or something, and he was some kind of scientist or psychologist or so I don't know what he was, some famous person, and he was talking about future tripping, and he said, and he seemed very peaceful, and I was like, oh, I'm really into this, what's going on, I want to know what this guy has to say. And he said, oh, I give a name to that voice in my head, and I don't know what let's say it was George, right? And when he hears it, he goes, oh, hello, George. He like addresses it, as if it's like, because it's not real, it's just a something that he does. And so I thought that was so funny. So back to you about future tripping. So when I asked you a few days, it was really recent, wasn't it? It was like Friday. I called you out of the blue, and you thought I was a salesman or something, right? How, what happened? You picked up the phone all startled. We didn't have each other's numbers saved yet.
Yeah. So my reaction in that moment and how it ties to future tripping. Uh, well, fortunately, you didn't give me a lot of time. That's like the best way to eliminate any fear about
Yes,
the
that's
future,
true.
right? Is just to sort of jump in. You were like, all right, let's do this next week, which I love, because it eliminates, if you can, anything that you struggle with, right? If we can try to find, I was going to ask you what made the transition from you looking back on your past to doing the future tripping bit. And I think once we kind of know our tendencies, I didn't know that I bite my. You're the second person though recently to point out the lip biting. But once we know our tendencies, then I guess we can put sort of systems in place to help. And if one of them is we just move things up in terms of timelines, then that could be helpful. So it was good the way you went about that, because something like this would normally um, cause me a lot, well, not a lot of anxiety in the months or weeks before, but in the immediate days before could be. It's good that we're here.
So why though? But why? What is it that makes you stressed out about, having to wait to say be interviewed or whatever it is? What is it that brings on that feeling?
That's such a good question. I suspect that for me, and probably for most people who get anxious about things like this, it's for me, it's usually about public things, right? Public speaking. Um, I just relinquished my role as a department head at the school, and it was so liberating because I knew I would never have to sit on the stage again at commencement or speak publicly. It was the most dreaded part of my job as a leader in the school, and I think it's about being, you know, vulnerable, and in those situations is nerve wracking for me, and I wonder if it is for other people too. That's probably, those of us who get that way probably all have some sort of deeper reason for not loving attention, whatever it might be. So yeah, I would think. Do you have any insight on that?
I think that as you do this more, that answer will come. I think that what's behind it will definitely surface. And I remember when I asked you, you said, "Oh, I think you said I feel uncomfortable talking in public," and I said, "Great, that means you have to do it.
You did, yeah.
You have to do it." And did I tell you something that someone told me about on that day?
You did.
Oh, I did? Okay. So I am terrified. I have a guitar here, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I had a guitar? I've got a few guitars. It's another story, another time. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to have one as a prop next to me because I love guitars so much in music. And I am terrified of playing live on a stage. Although I'm always future tripping and imagining myself playing and not and being comfortable on stage and all that. Terrifies me even talking about it right now. And I was talking to a mentor of mine. He's like, all right, you got to do it, man. I mean, and I said, I've done it. I've done it like 15 or 14 times in my life, but it terrifies the hell out of me. And so then maybe 2 hours later, I spoke to you and you said, oh no. And I was like, great, you've got to do it. Let's do it Monday. So here we are.
So ironic because here you are. You're seemingly so comfortable on camera. Every time we talk, there's an immediate, you make people feel at ease. You're very easy to talk to. You ask great questions, but then it translates to music and it's something different, I guess.
Terrified. So, oh my God, I'm feeling like my chest like tighten up even thinking about imagining myself. And I'm always like, when I play live, okay, I gotta make my setup really. So I do feel surprisingly very comfortable doing these interviews, and it's just a brand new thing. And I just started showing my face on our social media and for Dimple's hair and for the company stuff. And I never did for years, like literally just in the last few months. It just so happened to do it. And I realized I was really comfortable doing it. But in high school, I was known as mute because I just didn't say a word and like they would do a remote control and go mute. And I mean, but yeah, a lot to be able to get to feel comfortable public speaking. I love public speaking now. I mean, I don't care to even write. I love it. I love doing this, and actually, um, in doing a video of talking about products, the script, what the difference between this product and that product, and I did it when somebody didn't show up for a shoot. I was like, oh God, I'm paying all these videographers. I'm like, all right, I'll just do one right now, and I did it, and did it in one take, and I was like, oh, that felt good. Let's do another one. And then that led to this, and that led to me speaking to you, and then you telling me about, you were a little, shy to do this talk, but you've been absolutely great. And going back to you, Ashley, is that your greatest fear, or is there a greater fear talking in public? Is there any other fears you may have?
Um, I, I mean, in terms of, I don't want to call it a superficial fear because it's not a superficial fear, but I mean, public speaking is just a thing, right? And the fear behind it is just, if you really think about it, it's kind of silly. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it, and it's going to turn out or it's not going to turn out. I think my greater fear is probably, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about them, but they probably all start and end with my family, right? And as long as you have young children too, as long as they're
Yeah,
okay and they're taken care of, and I am mindful of how I present myself to them, and that I raise them to be good humans, I think everything's okay. Um, the biggest fears would be tied to if something were to happen to them, or if they're not okay.
absolutely. I can relate with that one too. I got two little kids too, two little boys. So you talked a lot about acceptance, the journey, and just to close on this one topic of public speaking, having a certain feeling about public speaking, yet you are so forthright and out there on social media, and you really tell it, you're very honest and vulnerable and authentic about your hair loss, and you're there to help other women. Like, how are you so comfortable to do that? Were you always comfortable to?
I'm not comfortable doing it. I do it anyway.
Really? And
Yeah,
you
I'm
still do it?
dreadful. Yeah, still. It gets easier, like anything.
Okay.
My biggest, actually, when I'm talking about fears, now I have answers later on, right? Isn't that how it is? You were talking about that earlier. I did have a really big fear when I started posting on social media that students would find me. That was terrifying, like
Oh,
terrifying, because I thought, oh my
yes.
gosh, if they find me, what's going to happen? Are their photos going to be all over the school? Will they be whispering about me while I'm at the front trying to talk about something that's important to their education? What might happen then? And I realized that can't stop me from trying to help other people. Or if I know when I first started this journey and I bought those pieces that weren't right for me years ago, I think it was the end of 2017, there were very few resources available online at that time. And the available resources that I did find were from women who were like lovely and absolute wealths of knowledge, but they only really worked with one type of hair. And the pieces that looked great on them weren't going to work for me. And I naively went ahead and made purchases thinking, well, if it looks good on them, it'll look good on me. It just was not right. They weren't the right pieces for a whole bunch of reasons. And I thought I didn't know that the social media world and that the online world had exploded since that time. So when I started my account, I didn't follow any other hair loss accounts. I didn't know. And it was like, wow, community. Women started following me and conversing with me right away. It was so lovely and so inspiring and surprising. But I started all of this with the intention of trying to help other people who could look at me and think, oh, yeah, my hair loss is similar to hers. My story is similar to hers. Maybe she can be a resource for me. And I couldn't let kids who are well intentioned and might just, if they find me, might make a couple of jokes, stop me from something that I saw as a greater purpose, right? I can't let my own children see me holding back on something because I'm scared of what a couple of people might think if they ever find it. Um, and I don't even remember what the original question was, but that's sort of how I found it now, how I managed to do these social media posts and be vulnerable is just do it before you're ready. And eventually I'll feel more comfortable. And the more I do it, the more comfortable I am. I never love hitting record. I find the greatest value for me comes in conversations, and the conversations come as a result of hitting record. So hitting record is sort of a necessary component of it all.
Just do it, Nike.
Yeah.
Or as Ashley says, just do it. before you're ready. Love that.
Wear the hair before you're ready. Well, that's one of my big pieces of advice is to just you don't have to wear the hair. There's nothing wrong with not wearing the hair. And as I said to you, I'm more comfortable now in my bio hair than I was before. But if you are wondering what it might be like, just go for it. I mean, I know that there are limitations in terms of budgets and in terms like all kinds of limitations that people have. But if the opportunity is there, take it and go out to a go out in it and wear it around the house and just do it and worry about how you'll be perceived later. Don't do that whole worry ahead of time that we talked about. Encounter those situations when they happen, if they happen. I mean, you can prepare for the worst if that helps, but at the end of the day, are you really going to let somebody else's opinion of you hold you back from trying something that you want to try?
Oh my God, I'm going to play live. I'm not going to let those opinions hold me back. I was like imagining what you were saying. Oh my God, that is so true.
I'll be in the front row. We'll all come.
Oh, thank
The whole
you.
Dimples world will
Thank
come.
you. I hear from all of the journey talk of the hair loss journey. I kind of envision just like as I step back and I hear all these stories from so many different people, the hair loss journey is like it's like in segments. There's the first bit where the hair loss begins, and it's like, oh my God, the realization, and then the doctors, the treatments. Many people try many different doctors, many different treatments. In what are they? Steroid injections, PRP, uh, biotin pills. That's like the smallest thing, and all lots of pills, lots of different things, topical things. And then there's somewhere around I hear there's like some kind of acceptance, and then okay, there's some kind of video someone sees online, like, oh my God, she's wearing this top or a wig, it looks great. That really helps the social media. Then comes this other part of the journey, and to me, to what I see, it's like the second part. It's like the purchasing journey of the purchasing the hair and the trying it out and the difficulty of how do I pick my color and style and size and what's a good reputable place to buy from and then after the purchase journey after which can take um, several purchases, and then it's like how to make it look good, like the styling journey and like the living with hair every day. It's a really complex process, and the product is not easy. I said this in another video, and I'm always going to say it's a very, very technical product. There are terminologies that need to be learned, and we'll have plenty of more educational video. We have lots of educational videos, but I'm going to make lots of in-depth ones for this channel, really deep ones, and happy to hear any questions and wants for anyone in the comments of what you want to see more of. But it's really technical and difficult. So I believe that you are now beginning to specialize on the purchase journey. And before we go to that, like, could you tell us about your journey of the purchase journey?
Yeah, you're right. It is so layered almost, right? And it's seemingly such an easy thing. You buy the wig, you put it on, you move on, but it's not that easy. And I think that is probably the stopping point for a lot of women based on the conversations that I've had is they go, okay, I want to do something about this. I've decided I'm ready to try wigs. I don't even know where to start. And I get messages like this all the time, right? What's step one? Who do I go to? What resources are available? Because there's now an influx in resources, which is great. And if you can narrow down to a company like yours and sort of sift through all of your educational pieces, you'll have all the answers you need. But sometimes you don't even know who that company is that's offering those educational pieces along with quality products. So you're sort of scattered, and you can piecemeal things as I did, but that can take ages, right? My journey started whenever it was 2017, let's say, pieces that I went, forget it, they're not going to work for me. That was following that doctor's visit to hair fibers, to making my first topper purchase in 2020, human hair, and really embracing it. There's a lot of navigation and videos that I watched that really didn't help me or inform me in terms of making decisions, a lot of wasted time. So yeah, it's it's hard to piecemeal it together, and it is a little bit more complex than you realize until you get in. And then I think that becomes the stopping point. So some women, they get in, they think it's easy enough to figure out, and then they go, I'm lost, I'll just whatever. And then they sit in their uncomfortable feelings for how long, right? And that's not good either, because as I said, for me, wearing the hair was the change agent in my outlook, in how I felt about myself and how I presented myself to the world. So if I sat in that area of uncertainty, and I sat in it long enough, any longer, I don't know what would have happened, right? Or how I would have felt, or how I would have recovered from that. So I'm not sure that I'm answering your initial question, but yeah, it is a lot to deal with. Unfortunately, I've met you and I've seen your videos that you talk about. They're wonderful, and you're really good on camera, and you're really good at explaining things in a concise way. So if anyone's listening and they haven't seen your videos, they can certainly use those as a resource. But it's getting to the point where they find you that is a bit of a challenge too.
Yeah, and you answered the question really good. I mean, it's complex. Buying a hair product, it's not like buying a t-shirt or a shirt or a pair of socks. I mean, it's hair, especially talking about human hair. It's hair that was once on somebody else's head that's been through so many treatments, so many processes, and that hair is unlike yours or my bio hair, and that there's no more oils or proteins coming from a scalp into the hair. So I got to treat it differently, and it's going to react differently. I mean, it's so different, and it's going to look awful. I used to get so many laughs because I maybe was a bit too honest, but I really like to lower the bar. I mean, I do believe we make lovely pieces. We're not, whatever. We make lovely pieces, but I always tell everyone it's going to look awful when you get it, because it's not been styled. But once you style it, it's going to look great. And that goes true for anything you buy. That's probably later on in the journey once you find what you're really looking for. But I've heard of consumers buying 8 or 9 toppers and being stuck with them until they find the one or the two that they switch off between. And I mean, that's thousands and thousands, hundreds of synthetic, thousands of human hair, right?
Yeah. I've had one story of a woman who wrote to me many months ago now, and we've maintained some contact. She's spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to find the perfect piece. And she's fortunate that she's able to do that financially, but not everybody can. And for the record, this piece though, the Clio that I'm wearing, and I'm not just saying this, very little's been done to her. I straighten I move the part over. That's it. That's what this looked
Right.
like out of the box. So that's, it's not always true, but it often is true that box hair is, it's sitting in a box for a couple months. It might lose some shape, but your pieces are pretty good. Yeah, that was a shocking story, and she still couldn't quite find the piece that was right for her. And I think it's a combination of being prepared, consulting the appropriate resources, and then also keeping your expectations reasonable about how you can make the piece your own when you get it.
Have you ever gone to a stylist to get a piece style?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't have anyone locally who I could trust to do that. I mean, it would be great. I know there are a lot of really capable women online, and if people are looking to have customization done, it's definitely doable. And women who work specifically in the alternative hair space, and you can ship them your pieces, and they'll work with you. Most of them in the United States. I'm in Canada, so no, I just manage things over here. And I do try to purchase pieces that I know are not going to need a lot of customization for me. So ideally, it's just a few little tweaks.
That's really great because buying online, it's not going to be styled or anything. So, but what you did, you managed to move the part in that piece you're wearing right now
Yeah.
without even, you didn't wash it, did you? Right?
No, and it's been worn a few times, and there's still no washing that's happening. That is the benefit of alternative hair for sure, right? You don't need to wash it very often. I have, as you talked about, this is a synthetic piece. It's still going to require care, different from human hair, but you do sell a really great product. It's an oil. So I did try that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the oil. Yeah. It's one of these sprays. This is the new bottle behind me. Um, I can't read the writing behind me backwards, but it's one of the ones on the end in the black bottle for the synthetic hair. Yeah, it's very good. There's doing a simple style out the box, which is possible. Some people add a little bit of
Yes.
water, spray a bit of water. I'm not sure how you did it, but to change that part, because oftentimes it's like a weird middle zigzag part or whatever, which is what our pieces are. They look terrible. Don't wear out the box. It's going to look bad, but do a little styling like Ashley did, and it's going to be wearable. If you want to go to the next level, I interviewed a stylist um, recently, and she had this term. I mean, she had a whole team, of like and sinks to do washes and stuff. And she says, "Oh yeah, whenever I'm sure I'm going to buy something and I know that I like it, she says I like to do what I call I wash the factory out." So she's like washing the product of the factory, especially with human hair.
Yes.
She gives it a good wash, and then she'll either air dry it depending on the texture of the hair. If it dries naturally with a beachy wave, that's what she wants for the client and all that. And yeah, a lot of stylists are adamant about they don't ever. I don't know any stylist that will show a topper or wig straight out of the bag. They'll usually spend about 45 minutes with it first, make it look good, presentable. Then they'll show it, and the consumer's like, "Oh my God, great!" Or oftentimes I'll just put it on the head without showing them the mirror, and then turn them around, and then they're like, "Oh my God!" And then it's like they have to buy it. They're sold on it. So that's really cool that you didn't go to a stylist. And yeah, it is disheartening for many and for myself and a lot of people that there aren't enough stylists that can do alternative hair. I say this all the time. I know women they'll drive 2, 4, 6 hours to get their hair done. Like how often? And every 2 months or 3 months to that stylist. That's how specialized it is. And there are becoming online versions where you can ship your hair. We actually plan on testing that out soon. Yeah, we're going to do a beta run of that. We're getting a lot of people asking us like, what if I just want a little cut in of a topper or a color? So yeah, it's we want to ease a difficult journey. So that could be one way that we could help. So stay informed for that. So I want to ask you real quick. We're almost out of time, but your husband, um, do you ever leave hair lying around like on the side table or, on the dresser in the bathroom? Did you have that talk with your husband?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's not just me because I talked about this on stories not that long ago, and then I got a bunch of photos from women all over North America showing me here it is on my bathtub ledge, here it is hanging over this armchair. It's really funny. I think that there are many of us who are guilty of that. Yeah, because it's oh my gosh. Can I say this in your presence? Someone once likened wearing a hairpiece to me in my very early days before I even made my first purchase, and I was looking at buying from this company. She said it's like coming home and taking off your bra at the end of the day. And it's about getting comfortable, right? Most of us, we get home. I don't know if you wear jeans in the house. My husband does. I think he's insane, right? I mean, as soon as I get home, comfy clothes are going on. You want to be comfortable in the home. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you have your home lounging clothes, and so part of that for me involves taking off the hair.
I interviewed Tracy. You're going to see her interview as well. And I asked her what was it like because she has a husband now, and the first time he saw her topper, like she did the clips, like clip, 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 and he was just like, "What is that?" when she first showed him. Ashley, it's been so wonderful having you on our show today. I want to ask you one more thing. Well, yes, it's one question, three parts. So, somebody new to hair loss, 3 tips. What would you say?
It's hard to pick just three. um, I think number one would be don't be afraid to play around a little bit, both in terms of trying different types of pieces. Human hair, synthetic, they're very different. They function differently, and both can be excellent. I think I told you initially started with synthetic wigs, moved away, found human hair, and now I'm back to wearing synthetic pieces again in the mix. So that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't willing to play around and give things a chance. So really give things a chance, play around with styles, cuts, fibers, and then also with the piece when you get it. So make sure that you are open to that. You talked about customization, although that's not something that I have done. It doesn't mean that I do it in my own way in terms of the styling, but you can go, beyond that and add bangs, a curtain bang, cut off some length, add layers, do whatever makes it feel most like you. So that would be, I think, one of the biggest ones is just know that it's okay. It's just hair, and it can be daunting at the beginning, but once you're really comfortable with that, there are a lot of really fantastic hair influencers who show you how to do those things. Jo is one of them, and I know that you know Jo. She does a
Hmm.
lot of customization. It's really inspiring. So be Jo, play with your hair. Um, I also think be kind to yourself, set your expectations uh, to an achievable level. Right? It's not, the piece might not work right away. There is no, in my opinion, perfect piece. There's just what you make of it, and once you make it your own, it becomes the perfect piece for you. So um, give yourself time, give yourself space, move forward, keep moving forward in the direction that you want to go. If it is in wearing alternative hair, if that's going to be part of your journey, don't stop. But give yourself a little grace, a little time, and don't be too hard on yourself if you're not feeling instantly like a changed person, right? It's going to take time. And then the final thing I think would be to really lean into community. Um, I've been so amazed by the people I've encountered, and we talk about nerves and putting ourselves out there. And yet, what I didn't tell you is I once had a different type of social media account that didn't require me to show my face. It was in the home decor space. And when I started this hair loss account and started posting online, one of the first things that I said to my husband, one of the biggest things that I noticed right away was the kindness and the sincerity of the people I was meeting. I've never met anything like this community online ever. I really believe that we have some of the loveliest, most honest, most helpful, altruistic women who are in this online space, and they're out there, and there's going to be someone out there whose story is going to be similar to yours in some ways, and you're going to have that connection, and you just need to find them. So lean into that community when you do find it, and don't be afraid to reach out into the direct messages and talk to people, ask questions, because they are more than willing to help you, and they just want you to get to a place of comfort and happiness. It's very much universal in the hair world, and it's really reassuring and gives me a lot of hope for where we can be in the future in terms of breaking down stigma about wearing alternative hair and hair loss. So, yeah, really lean into it.
Actually, I heard you say earlier that there's something you are working on for the future. You can tell us a little bit about this. Is it a beta or what's going on?
Well, we talked about the layers of making that first purchase and learning all the jargon and trying to figure out which companies are reputable, which ones might not be, how to even determine that. So I've started working on creating an online program that women can take and will help guide them through that whole process. So I'm very excited about it. It's being written right now, and yeah, we have some women who have shown interest in taking the program and going through it, giving us feedback, letting us know how we can make it better for women in the future. But we're really excited about it because I think there's a need. And with that program will also come community. So we'll also have a place where women who are all at that very beginning stage of where do I go? How do I navigate this as they work through the program? They can lean on each other and they can lean on me. And of course, we'll have other people involved in the community as well to help give feedback and answer questions that women might have as they're going through their journeys. So we're very excited about where that's going to lead us. And we're still a few weeks, if not a few months away from launching it, but we're very excited.
So a few weeks or a few months away from launching. Is there a title?
There's no title. That is definitely a motif of our conversation. Not yet, but um, we definitely have a mission, and we know that we want to take you from A to Z in terms of, step one in deciding even if you want a topper or a wig, or what's the difference? Because a lot of us don't even know the word topper when we start. So all the way from the very beginning to through making your first purchase and the aftercare and all the things that go along with that.
And if people want to find you now, what's the best way to find you and reach you?
Great. I'm really active on social media, and I think that that's where we had our first meeting as well, right? Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram. The handle is Life Beyond Locks, and I also have a website, which is lifebeyondlocks.com.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful interview with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
James, thank you so much. When you came to me and told me about the idea that you had for this program, and I think what I said to you in that moment was, I feel like there's such a need. Like, you are filling this real need for women just like me and all over the world. And I can't thank you enough for doing it, because I've looked for programs like this before and come up empty handed, and it couldn't be led by a better team than yours. So thank you for having me on here. I can't wait to listen to the rest of your guests and tune in regularly.
Thanks so much, Ashley. See you
Thank you.
soon.